Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. Intesar-e-Wilayat Ch-15. Chapter number 15. The Lesson of Karbala. O Nasreen-e-Waliul Asr. Our topic before you is that we are constantly talking about the definite attitudes of our Waliul Asr regarding Wilaya of the age and his Nusra. Friends, it's a fact that a person has a relationship with the people in the society in which he lives. And it is also a fact that everyone does not have the same relationship, rather each person has a unique relationship with the individual. Some people have only nodding acquaintance with others, while some other people have neighborhood relationships. Some people have got relations with the people living in the same city. Some people have a relationship of friendship and intimacy. Some people have a relationship of tolerance and some others have a family relationship. And this relationship is divided into many parts. That is, having a relationship with the father's relatives, having a relationship with the mother's relatives, and have a relationship with the wife's relatives. Some people have an affectionate and heartfelt relationships. And man has a lot of love for some other people and considered it permissible to sacrifice his life and property for them. Friends, it's also a fact that there is a ratio between the intensities, quantities, and purifications of love, and the equilibrium of these three elements are the source of strength or purity of relationship. It means that the more these three things are in a relationship, the stronger, purer, and lasting the relationship will be. And the less these three things in love are, the weaker the relationship becomes. Friends, a person's relations with others are based on their hobbies. A man is connected with others because of supports. Some people relate to each other because crime is a common factor among them. Some people are associated with others due to the same hobbies. People who are interested in worship and spirituality are also together. People are connected with one another because of science and art. People also relate to each other in terms of business or profession. As a person changes his hobbies, a person related to those hobbies also change. That is, if the game changes, the people involved will also change. Friends, it's also a fact that the only measure of the depth and strength of a person's relationship is attitudes. If it is to see how close a friend is in terms of his relationship with his friend, his attitudes is analyzed to what extent he can sacrifice for his friend. That is, the sacrifice of time, the sacrifice of wealth, the sacrifice of life, the sacrifice of comfort and tranquility, the sacrifice of eating and drinking, the sacrifice of pleasure of body and flesh. In fact, sacrifice is the currency that determines the value of a relationship and friendship. Friends, there are several examples in front of you. For example, if a person has a relationship with a person in a neighborhood or a city, then a person spares time for his sorrow and happiness, or we can say that he sacrifices his time. He also financially supports his friend in his grief and happiness just to maintain a community which is called Bhajidari in Saraiki and is also called Bradri Kapir, that is on the occasion of marriage as a salutation to the bride, or in other similar traditions, he gives something to both the parties. As in response, they also offer a sacrifice by serving walima, etc. In the same way, when someone dies, something has to be offered so that the community may survive. There is a saying, if you don't ask for a loan, the loan is gone, and if you don't meet, the relationship is gone. That is, if the demand from the debtor is left, the debt will sink. And if you stop meeting the relative, the relationship will end. The first sacrifice that has to be made is the sacrifice of time, and one has to spare time for one's relatives. One of man's relationships which are based on hobbies is worship and religion, and the second relationship is related to crime and sin. But it is also a strange fact that the relationship between religion and worship is often weak, and the relationship between crime and sin is often strong. A professional criminal or rogue is so entrenched in the friendship of another rogue, but a worshipper is not so steadfast in the friendship of his fellow worshipping friend. Let me give you an example of this. There is a famous incident in our Punjab where two thugs were friends. One of them was a fugitive, while the other one was not a fugitive. The one who was not a fugitive was getting married, and when the Sehrabandi, covering the groom's forehead with the garland of the rosary, a kind of local tradition ceremony started, a man came and told the groom that his accomplice was going to be raided by the police and he had to be killed in that raid. The rogue threw down the gauntlet and told the relatives, "I'm going to help my friend. If I survive, I will perform the ritual again, and if I was killed, my fiancée is allowed to marry whomever she wants." That man immediately came out and rode to his companion on a horse and was killed in a police encounter. In the same way, there are cases of friends in the world who sacrifice their lives for their friends. Not only that, they sacrifice their homes and their wives and even children. Even there are countless examples of their financial sacrifices. If we classify relationships, we see many levels of relationships in front of us, because in this classification, the closeness and respect of the relationship are measured. Therefore, first-class relationships are those that are close to us and our loved ones. Parents have priority in the relationship and their rights have been highly valued by Sharia. It has even been said, "Beware of disobedience to parents," because the one who does not fulfill the rights of his parents is one who is considered rebellious and will never be able to smell the fragrance of heaven. Similarly, it was ordained, if the parents give orders, just withdraw from your land and property. If the parents give orders, just leave the house and even leave your wife and children, provided your parents are pious. The second category of relationship is those who are kinship. Then it is the turn of the relatives, and then comes the turn of the tribe or other family members. The third category is the neighbors. Neighborhood boundaries are calculated from the front and the back of your home, including its right and left up to 40 houses in each direction. The fourth level is the number of people living in the same city. In the same way, this chain extends to friendships, professions, and hobbies. Spiritual relationships. Friends, just as human beings have external relationships, so do spiritual relations, which are inward but real relations. As we see the parental rights take precedence over all in external relationships, what is the reason for this? This is so because parents are the outward source of human existence and creation, because without parents, we could not come into this world. But if we viewed internally and spiritually, the source of our existence and birth is not the parents but an inward system, and the cause and the source of the creation of man are the holy essence for which the whole universe was created, and about which it has been said in Hadith-e-Qudsi. That is why, when the parents are in conflict with the Holy Prophet and his holy family, then the rule is to disobey the parents and obey our Waliul Asr. Friends, the greatest connection we have with humanity is that of the divine lights that has given us a universal existence. These are our benefactors, and the positive attitudes we have towards them is called religion. Attitudes. Friends, now we are coming to our goal. As I said, the relationship and its criteria are just attitudes. But it is also a strange fact that all the sects of the Islamic world are suffering from this understanding that they are a Naji sect and that they will be saved and the rest will go to hell. This is a misunderstanding, because Allah's party, that is Hizbullah, is not a political party in which there is a room for the gutty. In fact, it's a character that is to be seen there, and the salvation will be awarded in terms of one's actions. It is not the case that a man joins a specific party and starts doing all the bad deeds like stealing, robbery, smuggling, murder, etc. And even if he does not care about the honor of others, daughters-in-law or daughters, and be saved just by joining that specific party. And a man of another religion, no matter how many good deeds he does, will be thrown into hell as every ruling party holds the opposition accountable. If Allah Almighty also holds the opposition accountable in the same way, then Allah will not be the doer of justice. Our Shiites brothers say that because we belong to the group of Muhammad and his family, only we will be saved and there will be no one to ask us on the day of resurrection. This is a great misunderstanding on their part because we have not yet been able to prove by our character whose party we belong to. The fact is that the person who votes for the party is counted in such a party. As we see, there are many people who carry the flag of one party, give speeches in favor of it, and mix the heavens and earth in praise of the leader of the same party. But when they cast their vote, they stamp the symbol of another party. Now you decide which party they belong to, whether they belong to the party whose flag they carried or to the other party which they voted for. Friends, it's a matter of action. We need to keep a close eye on our attitudes. We make big claims, but in practice, we do the opposite. Today, many people seem to be saying that they love the emperor of the time, they are his slaves, and he is their great emperor. There are many such claims, but these claims are going on without any argument and proof. If a person claims something worth 1 rupee in court, he has to give evidence for it. So, don't we need any solid proof for such a big claim of love and sacrifice for our Waliul Asr? Our greatest claim is the love and affection that we have with our emperor of the time. Let's undergo the process of self-accountability whether we are right in this claim. Friends, if a man's child is lost, we see how much he tries to get his lost child back. You and I have observed that people advertise in the newspapers of their missing child so that someone may report their missing child. His parents even publish the photo, complexion, appearance, etc. in the newspapers and report their case to the police all over Pakistan. They announce that the greatest reward will be given to the one who informs about the child. They rush to different places to find their baby and also involve their relatives in this race. They also visit different spiritual personalities and implore them to pray for their lost child. Not only that, but they also knock on the door of the political leaders. Now just think that even our Imam-e-Zamana has also disappeared. If we really love him, then what we have done for him? If we have prayed for him like our lost child, if we have tried to find him somewhere, if we have set a reward for the one who may inform us about our Waliul Asr, if we have run to approach our Waliul Asr, have we gone to the Holy Shrine or Karbala or to another holy place to pray for the return of our Imam-e-Zamana? Have we ever asked anyone to tell us a sacred act that would enable us to approach our emperor of the time? If we have ever felt his absence, have we ever shed tears in his separation and grief? Have we ever felt his separation as a shock? Friends, take a look at your attitudes. If one of your chickens goes missing, you go to 10 houses and continue looking for it, as much as you struggle to find a lost hen. Have you ever struggled to find out your master of the age? You have to acknowledge the fact that you have not yet shown as much love for your Waliul Asr as you express for your lost chicken. If we have not struggled as much to find our master as we have to find a lost hen, then why is it that we are claiming love for our master of the age? Jaza al-Nakhla incident. Friends, there is an incident in our books that when the Holy Prophet migrated to Medina, he used to use one of the severed trunks in the Prophet's mosque as a pulpit. When many days passed in the same manner, there was a woman named Aisha Ansari who brought a slave named Yaqub Rumi. He was a Roman slave and was an expert in carpentry. One day, he said that he knew how to carve out the best kind of pulpit, and if he was given wood, he can make a beautiful pulpit for the Holy Prophet. This Ansari woman provided the slave with wood, and he made the first pulpit for the Messenger of Allah. It was a pulpit of the 3 steps and was finally placed in the mosque. When the Holy Prophet came there, he saw the pulpit, and at the request of his companions, he honored that pulpit. As he adorned that pulpit by sitting on it, the sound of weeping started coming from the trunk of that palm tree. In Arabic, Hunan refers to the mother who is separated from her child and is wailing. From the trunk of this palm came the sound of weeping bitterly as a mother weeps for her lost child. The Holy Prophet descended from the pulpit and massaged the palm trunk with his hands and consoled it. Then the palm trunk fell silent. Then the Holy Prophet came to the pulpit and addressed the people and said, "Look, this palm trunk has felt my separation, and if I had not consoled it today, it would have continued crying like this till the day of resurrection." Then he said to the people, "You should learn a lesson from the fact that a dry palm trunk has felt my separation and sighed and groaned in our separation, and you are living human beings. You will never be achieving your goal unless you feel the same intensity of my separation." Friends, you see that there is a lesson for us in this incident as well. Whether we have felt the separation and parting of our Waliul Asr, have you ever shed tears over his absence? Have we ever really felt his parting? Incident of Soban. Friends, there was a slave of the Holy Prophet called Hazrat Soban. He noticed that the slave often used to cry. He used to cry so much that he turned pale. One day, the Holy Prophet asked the reason for his crying. He said, "O my master, you are well aware of the condition of my heart. Your love has infused into my heart, and I am just worried that if I die, I will be separated from you. Even if I was blessed with heaven, the trauma of your parting will remain with me because I will reach a lower level of heaven, and you are the sole honor of heaven. Obviously, your position in heaven will be far much better than that of mine. As a result, I will be separated from you. The only grief that is eating me up day and night is that I am going to be separated from you." The Holy Prophet embraced Hazrat Soban and said, "Whoever loves us as much as you do and intensely feels our separation, he will be with me tomorrow in our ranks in paradise." Friends, the holy slave has given us the lesson of blessed slavery, and if we too will feel the separation and the anguish of the parting of our Waliul Asr in our hearts in the same way, then our love for our Waliul Asr will be considered pure. Otherwise, everything we do is no more than a mere show. In the same way, this slave has also taught us self-accountability. Let's examine if our hearts are really overflowing with the true love for our Waliul Asr, just as the slave's heart was overbrimming with the love of his master. And most of all, that is our attitude towards our master. Friends, our behavior proves that we are strangers to our Waliul Asr and we do not even realize his absence. Otherwise, we would have wept and prayed for his reappearance as soon as possible. In fact, the mother whose child is separated from her weeps bitterly. We don't even realize the loss, so the scent of love is not felt from our attitudes. This is exactly what the sacred family has taught us. They seem to be saying in Dua Kumail, "O our beloved Master, we can bear your torment, but we cannot bear your separation in parting." By praying this, he has taught us to ask our Waliul Asr in the same manner that we can bear the torment of Allah, but cannot bear the torment of separation and parting of our eternal guardian. When we develop the same feeling like this, then no hijab or veil will remain between us and our true beloved Master. But we do not even bother to realize that our Emperor is separated from us and is out of our sight, and he is shedding tears of blood in the veil of his absence, or Ghabat. And due to the shortage of supporters, Ansars, his absence, Ghabat, is getting longer because there is no one to serve him Nusra. Now you tell, if anyone can claim his love for his beloved Waliul Asr even after adopting such an indifferent attitude? Friends, when we hold ourselves accountable and analyze ourselves in terms of certain actions and negative attitudes, we come to know that we, that is Shiites, are hostile to our emperor of the time. Yet we have developed this fake understanding that we really love him and he also loves us, and he has none to love and console but only us, God forbids. Friends, see if the father of one of your friends is killed and he is also a highly respected and pious person, and anyone tries to take some undue advantage by making that murder an issue. In other words, if he is trying to gain power by making his murder an issue of his politics, then you just think about whether that man is a friend or an enemy of the heirs of this victim. Do you also see that if a man starts doing some work by setting his commission from the blood deal of that victim, is he a friend or an enemy of this victim and his survivors? If a man knows that an amulet is written from the blood of an innocent man, which enriches man with the wealth of the world, and if some people have come together and are fighting for every drop of blood of this victim, saying that they would take a drop of blood and thus there would be a commotion, and every man to become rich is engaged in taking every drop of blood of the victim either by paying or by force or by stealing. If that man is shedding tears over the loss of the victim and also writing amulets to become rich with his blood, then simply tells me what type of relationship this opportunist person has got with the victim. Let me give you another example. If some people are told that licking the blood of an innocent victim will make them rich in this world, in the hereafter, they will go to heaven despite every worst sin in the world. So, they will be fighting with one another to lick the blood of the oppressed, and they will also be telling one another the grief of the victim while weeping and groaning. And at the same time, they will also be proudly telling each other that they have licked so much blood of that oppressed. Now just think about what the relationship of these selfish people may have with that oppressed person. Similarly, if a race starts to lick the blood of the oppressed and every legitimate and illegitimate tactic is being used in it, then tell me what relationship these people have with this oppressed person or his bereaved family. Have you ever heard of a man whose father has been killed and he was crying for him with the intention that crying for his killed father would get him to heaven, or crying will benefit him in this world or the hereafter? When we do not have this kind of attitude towards our victims, then why do we have this attitude towards our own imams? When we cry for our relatives, the only thing that motivates us is to cry is heartache. And why do the greed of the world in the hereafter creeps into our hearts when we weep in the misery of the Holy Family? Is it not that we do not consider them as our own from the core of our hearts, and we consider them only as a means of attaining this world and the hereafter? If it is so, we should not claim to love them, or we must prove first by our attitude that we love them unselfishly, and we will gladly accept their love even if we are ruined in this world and we are condemned to hell in the hereafter, but we will not withdraw from their love. Friends, the lowest standard of behavior that a human being should have with these pure souls is that we should at least treat them as we treat ourselves. It would be acceptable, but we are doing to them what we do not like about ourselves. Hazrat Mauka ibn Samama Asadi. Friends, the Nusra of Wilayah of the age that we have been taught in Karbala had both kinds of characters in terms of attitudes. On one hand, there were those who called themselves die-hard friends of Cream-e Karbala and Shiites, but were fleeing at the night of Ashura, the 10th of Muharram, leaving their Waliul Asr, that is Cream-e-Karbala, at the mercy of God. On the other hand, there were those who did not call themselves Shiites or make any big claims. In fact, they had come to the battlefield of Karbala to martyr Cream-e-Karbala, but they discovered the truth in a golden moment and then jumped into the field of Nusra, practically being completely irrespective of the consequences, and they went ahead and wrote this great position in their destiny with their own hands. One of these was Sayyid in Azal. Hazrat Moqa ibn Samama Asadi belonged to the tribe of Bani Asad and was one of the followers. Hazrat Samama opposed Hazrat Ali in the battle of Safin and Jamal and fully supported Muawiyah. After the death of Muawiyah, when Noman bin Bashir Ansari started owing allegiance to the accursed Yazid, Hazrat Samama also owed allegiance to the accursed Yazid and agreed to assist him and sacrifice his life for Yazid. And in the whole movement of Hazrat Amir Muslim, Hazrat Samama opposed Hazrat Amir Muslim and gave full support to the army of disbelievers. Even after the martyrdom of Hazrat Amir Muslim, Hazrat Samama remained associated with the court of Kufa. When the accursed Ibn Yazid planned to send an army to Karbala and made Ibn Sa'd the accursed commander of the army, Hazrat Samama was sent as the companion of Ibn Sa'd. After reaching Karbala, when peace talks started between Karim-e-Karbala and the accursed Umar ibn Sa'd, Hazrat Samama also kept watching and listening to everything. Eventually, in these negotiations, as Karim-e-Karbala's terms of peace were rejected, Hazrat Samama realized that it was not the right thing to do, because the conditions presented by Karim-e-Karbala were based on truth and principle. On the morning of Ashura, the 10th of Muharram, when the battle began to be lined up, Karim-e-Karbala adjusted the order of his small army, and then by riding on a camel, he delivered a sermon between the two armies. In this sermon, he introduced himself and called for the truth. At that time, a ray of the divine light of faith shone in the heart of Hazrat Samama, and he rode his horse and joined the army of Karim-e-Karbala. Here he confessed and repented of his sins. As the battle broke out, he too took permission to fight and fought the army of the disbelievers courageously and finally fell down his horse, being fatally wounded. When the oppressors ran to martyr him, the people of Bani Asad who were present in the army of Kufa and Syria came and saved the life of Hazrat Samama. They said to the accursed Umar ibn Sa'd, "There is no hope for Samama's survival, so hand him over to us, otherwise we will raise a rebellion against the army." The accursed Ibn Sa'd said, "Samama may be released only on one condition, that whatever decision the accursed Ibn Ziyad makes will be acceptable to all." Everyone agreed on this, and Hazrat Samama was picked up and transferred to the tents of Bani Asad. Then on the day of the 11th Muharram, he was taken to Kufa. When the accursed Ibn Sa'd reached Kufa, he told the accursed Ibn Ziyad about Hazrat Samama in detail. The accursed Ibn Ziyad ordered to martyr Hazrat Samama, but the people of Bani Asad intervened and saved him. The accursed Ibn Ziyad then handed Hazrat Samama to the accursed Zarara, who was the custodian of the prisons. The same accursed Zarara chained Hazrat Samama in the same wounded conditions and put him in prison. Hazrat Samama was imprisoned there for a year, and eventually this Nasser was martyred in the same wounded condition in captivity. Hazrat Samama has taught future generations that whenever the privilege of their Waliul Asr becomes crystal clear to them, then they must not be afraid of any difficulty. Young people may be imprisoned, but they never back down from the true path. One of the lessons we learned from this incident is that when the great right or privilege of the Waliul Asr becomes crystal clear, we have to pay for this special right for the whole of our life. It is not that the battle of Karbala is over or the process of Nusra is over, but it has to continue as long as life lasts. Whether we are injured, weak, captive, or we are surrounded by calamities or difficulties, the duty of Nusra of Wilayah of the age is never abrogated. Nusra is not one of the branches, fruat, that it should be shortened like prayer or a quarter is left in fear. And Nusra is not like fasting to be cancelled due to the danger of one's life. On the contrary, this privilege of our Waliul Asr remains intact in every situation and also retains all its splits. One of the most important lessons is that the real religion is attitude. Although the belief of Hazrat Samama was just obligatory, he may not even know about the creative divine light of Kareem Karbala, and he may not even know about the absolute divine guardianship of Kareem Karbala. But the only thing he knew was that he was Waliul Asr and how to treat him. After that, he fulfilled that discovered duty to the fullest for the rest of his life. And finally, he proved that the whole game is just about attitudes and man receives its end and fruit only from attitudes. Hazrat Hafaf bin Mehend Rasabi. Friends, one of the eternal lessons of Karbala is Nusra. Karbala is the chemistry of different attitudes. This lesson is mathematical in terms of results, that is, it is either 100% correct or 100% incorrect, and there is no middle ground in it. What is not 100% true is 100% false. Intermediate degree do not exist in the field of Nusra, because in the Nusra of Waliul Asr, the ratio of marks is only 100%, whether it is a positive or negative. Friends, we are busy explaining the fact that man is called either truthful or false because of his attitudes. Either he is called successful or unsuccessful, friend or foe. No matter how much love one has in one's heart, if it is not manifested in action, then the love is not counted. And in the army of Kufa and Syria, there may be thousands among the people inside Kufa who consider Kareem Karbala as their Imam, and thousands of people may nurture his love in their hearts because of his being maternal grandson of the Holy Prophet, and they may have faith in Kareem Karbala as a Shiite of today does have, but they could not offer him Nusra due to unfavorable circumstances. So, would it be appropriate to add them to the list of friends? Respectable mystics say that only those were true followers who performed the duty of Nusra of Imam of the time, no matter whether they were martyred or injured or remained in prisons in Nusra. For example, Hazrat Intesar-e-Wilayat and many other Ansars of Kareem Karbala who were forced to live in Medina by Kareem Karbala were all a kind of supporters. The fact is that only those who tried to get martyrdom on their behalf were believers, and the rest of people on earth at that time are counted as apostates. Now the question arises that there will be 1 million of people on earth at that time who did not even know about the event of Karbala, so how can we call them apostates? In response to this question, the respectable mystics say that Kareem Karbala left his homeland in the month of Rajab and was martyred on the 10th of Muharram. This is a period of 5 or 6 months, and whoever is heedless of his Waliul Asr for full 5 months and does not even know how are the days and nights of his Waliul Asr going, so can such a person be called a believer? If a person is oblivious of the Imam of his time for months, then what should we call him if we do not brand him as an apostate? In this debate, we have the feeling that somewhere we might be like these negligent people who have not known for months but for years how miserably our emperor of the time, that is our Waliul Asr, is passing his days and nights. Friends, it's a matter of attitude, and Karbala is a gallery of attitudes. We have to just turn the pages of the book of Karbala and see what kind of behavior we want to study and the consequences of that particular behavior. On the day of Ashura, 10th of Muharram in Karbala, there were many characters who arrived there after the martyrdom of Kareem Karbala, or before they reached Karbala, they were informed of the martyrdom of Kareem Karbala. All these characters had their reaction towards the incident, that is, after hearing the news of martyrdom, everyone's attitude was different from one another. For example, some people fainted after hearing the news of martyrdom and then returned home in the same state that the time for Nusra has passed. Some people, on hearing this news, cried to such a greater extent that they fainted. After having recovered, they returned to their homes and started a jihad movement. They gathered their supporters and started preparing for the battle. There were some people who, when they heard the news and thought of jihad, stopped carrying sword because of their loneliness and weakness. Every one of them thought that even if he wielded the sword alone, he could not succeed. Therefore, all these people hid themselves in disbelievers of Makkah and did not even reveal themselves. Even if they wept, they used to weep secretly due to the fear of the disbelievers. Some other people were content with mourning after the martyrdom. They did not take any step to offer Nusra and release the sacred veiled beings symbolizing monotheism and prophethood, nor even thought of offering Nusra. But some of them did not see their weakness, nor did they see their loneliness, nor did they think of their end, but they offered Nusra, prayer, in the first place. One of these pure lovers of Karim-e-Karbala is Hazrat Hafhafaf bin Mehand Rasabi. Friends, you know the tribe of Azadi. This was the Rasbi tribe, was actually a branch of the Azadi tribe. This Bani Rasib was actually called that branch of Azadi which was settled on Basra. And they may even have started calling themselves Rasabi to create their own separate identity. There may be some other reason for it. Hazrat Hafhafaf also belonged to the same tribe and was also a resident of Basra. Sahib-e-Rajal Mamakani writes that Hazrat Hafhafaf was a famous gallant, unequaled brave and matchless warrior. He was counted among those who were ever ready to sacrifice their lives for Amir-e-Kainat, that is Hazrat Ali. Hazrat Hafhafaf participated in all the battles in the company of Amir-e-Kainat, and in the battles of Jamal, Safin and Nehrawan, he left the marks of his sword on the noses of the accursed disbelievers. In the battle of Safin, Amir-e-Kainat had made him the leader of the pioneer of Bani Rasab, the tribe. He remained in Kufa until the reign of Amir-e-Kainat. After the martyrdom of Amir-e-Kainat, when Hazrat Imam Hassan-e-Mujtaba, the heir to the throne of Amir-e-Kainat, returned to Medina, he stayed with him in Medina. And when Hazrat Imam Hassan-e-Mujtaba was martyred with a cup of poison through a conspiracy which was hatched by Muawiyah, he went back to Basra and settled down there. When Karim-e-Karbala left Medina and wrote letters from Makkah to the believers in Basra, he was not there. When he returned to Basra, the people of Basra informed him of the situation. By the time Basra had been cordoned off, he planned to escape from there and rode alone to Kufa on his horse. On the way, someone told him that Karim-e-Karbala was camping on the land of Karbala. He turned towards Karbala and reached there on the day of Ashura, 10th of Muharram, after Asr prayers. He entered the Syrian army at the time when that accursed army had offered their Friday prayers after martyring Karim-e-Karbala. At that time, someone asked him who he was. Hazrat Hafhafaf said, "I am Hafhafaf bin Mehand Rasabi and I have come from Basra for the Nusra of Karim-e-Karbala. Can you tell me where to find Karim-e-Karbala?" At that time, the Kufis told him that the battle was over and that they had martyred Karim-e-Karbala along with his sacred family members, his companions and his supporters, that is, Ansars. At present, only one of his pure descendants has survived who is ill, and the rest are veiled and chaste beings, symbolizing monotheism and prophethood, who have just been looted as the accursed Umar bin Saad ordered the army to do so. And after their tents have been cooled, they have just offered their Jummah prayers. As Hazrat Hafhafaf heard this, the world became a dark place for him, and the flow of blood reddened his eyes. He once saw the Syrian military and let out a cold sigh. Then he leaped upon his saddle, drew out his sword, and like an angry lion, he assaulted the enemies of the religion. Thousands of people were suddenly attacked by one man, and all of a sudden there was a stampede. Then all the swords came out of their cases and a battle broke out. What kind of war was it that there were thousands of young people compared to only one? But the lover of asceticism did not care about thousands of people and ruthlessly massacred the Kufis. And the state of this battle was such that when he challenged someone and moved towards him, no matter how brave the young man might be, he saw no way out except escape. And in front of the blows of his swords, the fearful Kufis and Syrian soldiers were seen running like sheep and goats. When the disbelieving army of Kufa and Syria saw his style of hitting and injuring with his sword, they cut off the feet of his horse. But this weak supporter did not give up, but started fighting on foot, and in this battle he gave many Kufis the gateway to Darul Bawar, poetry, riches. Nusra is obligatory to perform the duty of Nusra, and it's never too late. Even if the day of Nusra passes, it is still early in the morning. When life is to be sacrificed, what difference does it make to be late or early? In the eyes of the lover, the army of the enemy never backs down. Whenever there is a sacrifice, it is in fact its first exact time. The paradise of meeting with the beloved is just a step ahead of Ishq. Haf is in love with Karim-e Karbala and is on the right and has no fear. No matter how many armies of falsehood, the game of the liars is not brave. There is no fear of anything in the nature of true lovers. No matter how weak the butterfly is, its nature is like that of a lion. I have to unveil the veil of the bride of death with the sword. When the lovers work hard, every destination is subdued. I am laying the groundwork for Shabir's avenge today. Hassan's son will accomplish this task of avenge. Jafar announces it. Hazrat Haf continued reciting poetic verses and was also fighting with his sword bravely. But this body was also wounded by the attacks of swords from all sides. And this warrior wielded his sword to the last, and after drinking the cup of martyrdom, he joined the caravan of martyrs. May the Creator of eternity fulfill his goal of Nusra. Friends, this pure man with the sacrificing spirit has blessed us with the teaching of Nusra and have also shown another aspect of Nusra to the next coming generation. And a new chapter of the book of Nusra has been opened for our learning. Let's take a look at some of the consequences of the lessons of Nusra. We have been taught that there is no set time for Nusra, therefore, one should never waste even a single opportunity of Nusra whenever it is offered. Whenever the Nusra prayer is performed at the earliest time, and if it is made up, then it will be permanently made up. Because when we postpone this prayer till another time, then this prayer will be for the second time and there will be no substitute for the previously postponed prayer. Every effort should be made to fight even putting one's life at stake in Nusra. But Nusra is not offered with the intention of martyrdom, but with the determination to be the conqueror in the fight or get one's objective done. But if one is martyred in Nusra, then this is ascension. In Nusra, we must keep our goal in mind, but without the willingness to be martyred, the pursuit of the goal sometimes leads to deprivation. As in the case of Sayyid bin Abdullah Kaka, he arrived late in Karbala and could not offer Nusra and got busy in looking for an opportunity. He could not be counted among the martyrs of Karbala, but he was counted among those who repented. Because he had committed a sin by giving up timely Nusra, he was considered among those who sincerely repented. Man cannot perform Nusra unless he becomes indifferent to the consequences. That's why one has to be quite irrespective of the disastrous consequences of Nusra. Friends, let's also pray that God Almighty may grant us the opportunity to offer Nusra for our Waliul Asr and give us the ability to pray sincerely. Let's pray with all our hearts while shedding tears, let the heir and avenger of the oppressed sacred family reappear soon, take their revenge, and settle the ancestors in this world again with divine glory. Ameen. Ya Rabbul Alameen. Alhamdulillah wa shukra sahib az-zaman. Ajjalallahu farajahu sharif.